It's really great to be able to connect with you all for our collaborative meeting. As always, we will record it, post the recording and the slides to Padlet, either later this week or early next week, so that anyone who wants to come back and revisit it can. But I will go ahead and open it up for the day. Next slide. Um, so gonna do some brief updates on the grant. I know usually we do that at the end, and then I usually miss people. So this time I figured we should start there. And then talk a little bit about the results from the self-assessment, around sustainability planning. Thank you to everyone who has, been able to take the time to work with your council through that process and kind of identify some areas that you have in terms of strengths, areas that you may want to focus on building up. And then we'll have some time to kind of talk a bit about that, and then do a little bit more large group discussion, and then we'll close out for the day. So next slide. So just want to touch on the funding elements. So we do for sure want to let you know, reiterate that we have for sure funds through September 30th of 2025. Um, Working closely with the folks at the state that managed the FIG grant or the Public Health Infrastructure Grant. If you're familiar with that, to see if there are some opportunities to leverage some dollars there, for the potential to have some additional funds to add to both this year and if we can possibly extend into fiscal year 26. So fingers crossed. And then still looking for additional funding sources to keep the work going. But really hopeful about the conversations that we've been having with the folks with FIG and finding ways that we can really highlight the work that y'all have been doing. Oh wow, I don't have my video on. And then you all either kind of talked with us or got an email from us moving everyone to monthly invoicing for the rest of the contract period. So through the rest of this fiscal year, everyone will invoice monthly. So typically those are due on the 15th of each month. We do, have some times where that is like a bit of a hard deadline just because of closing out certain fiscal periods for MPHI in the state of Michigan. But, if you need to talk with us about kind of what timeline makes the most sense, let us know. But we will now moving forward just expect a monthly invoice from everyone. Um, and then I sent out an email at the end of October to introduce our new project coordinator. So I know that for a very long time I was the project coordinator for the councils. And as Afton accepted her role at Birth Detroit, I kind of moved into the grant manager position. So that has been my role since July with OAMH and MDHHS. And so we had been searching for the perfect person to fill in this role. And I'm really grateful to have Cassie here with us. And so I'm going to give her the mic for a little bit.
Thanks, Danielle. Hi, everyone. I'm Cassie Fancher, who's she, her, aya pronouns. I'm super excited to be stepping into this role and getting to work alongside you, catching up on all the great work you've already been doing and seeing how I can help support with whatever I can. A little bit about me. I am joining from the University of Michigan Health West, so formerly Metro Health Hospital System over here on the west side of the state. I am in Grand Rapids, live on the southeast side with my husband and dog. And before that, well, I worked at the hospital system as the Health Equity and Community Partnerships Coordinator for 2 years, and then worked within the population health management side of the house for a year, where we looked at health disparities within patient populations. So before that, I worked at the Kent County Health Department. So shout out to you, Brian. And I was our REACH program manager there, the racial and ethnic approaches to community health. And we worked on a lot of policy, systems, and environmental changes to reduce health disparities, specifically in the Grand Rapids area. So really excited to bring all that into this role and get back into public health and see this work across the state, seeing what folks are coming up with and how we're serving priority populations, and really using the community-driven solutions, because those are oftentimes the most sustainable. So excited to continue learning more and getting to know you a little bit more too. So thanks for having me.
Thanks so much. I just want to pause here, see if folks had any questions about any of the updates that were shared. Let me check the chat. All right. As always, if you have any questions, comments, concerns, feel free to reach out to us. Cassie, do you want to put your email in the chat for everyone, so that they have that? You'll start to see her on our calls, for your check-ins, and you, as we get her up to speed, I will be more of like the person behind the curtain. So I'll be around as needed, still deeply invested in the work that's happening for the councils, but this will allow me some time to work with some of our other grant partners for the other activities that are still going, figure out ways that we can identify opportunities for alignment, look for those additional funding sources, etc. I'm hoping to better be able to focus some of my time to ensure kind of success of all of our grant partners as a whole. So, um, so excited.
Danielle,
Um,
I'm just going to jump in real quick.
yeah.
Welcome Cassie to the team. She's a great addition to the team. As she mentioned, I got the privilege to work with her for several years here at the health department, and her heart is definitely dedicated to this work. So she's a great person to be in this role. So I just wanted to kind of vouch for her because she's an amazing individual and truly dedicated to this work. So I think you all enjoy working with her. We'll miss Danielle, obviously, but yeah, she's a great person to have as part of this team.
That was really awesome. So I'm really glad that you were able to share those kind words. I think it's a great fit in terms of personal alignments and interests and the work that everyone is doing. So I think it's going to be great. And so it will be, because I've said it. So let's be sure, if there are any kind of questions that you need me for, you can still reach out to me. If I redirect you, it's just to make sure that, everyone's staying in the communication loop, and that we make sure that all of the information is really equally spread. But those are all the big updates we have on the grant. Everything else is staying the same in terms of reporting, and in the overall activity levels. If we are able to acquire some of those big dollars, I'll let folks know, and kind of, share the updates around that. Yeah, so I think the next part is the sustainability self-assessment. So I think I'm passing it off to Lindsay.
Yep.
Thank you. Thanks, Danielle. So today during our learning collaborative, we really want to sort of take some time to look at the sort of high level results of the sustainability assessments that you all provided. So thank you very much for getting those to us. We really want to use them to sort of inform our planning for future TA opportunities, office hour sessions, and then thinking through ways that we can have you all really set up a way to like learn from one another. And so we can use all the best minds here in this room to try and strengthen maybe areas that maybe we scored a little low on, sharing strategies for those of you that said, hey, we really feel like we've achieved a lot of mastery in this area. Like, how can we share those learnings with everyone else and try and really create that space here? So this is sort of just a start of that. But we wanted to take the time to sort of go through, remind ourselves what the process was, what we all asked you to do and where we're hoping that we will go from here. So in the beginning, this sort of was born from us trying to like think and support you all in creating a sustainability plan. And so when we started thinking about the components of sustainability beyond just funding, thinking about what are the different elements that are essential to like really sustain the council work in our communities, we came up with a self-assessment to use as a planning tool. And we presented the self-assessment and you all told us like, hey, we need more information about this. We really need to think about this some more. And we said, okay. So we broke it down into 3 office hour mini sessions over the summer. So we had a chance to really sort of think about each component and how we might sort of explain this to the councils and really sort of present this assessment to them and use it sort of strategically in the work. And so then after that, you all sort of took the self-assessment and the process back, and we asked you all to really think about having each individual council member sort of reflect on how they would have rated their the council on each component, and then come together to create like a final score based on consensus. And so after that, you emailed it back to us. And so we sort of combined the results to see like, how did everyone rank themselves? What are some themes that we saw based on the notes that you all shared with us? And then after that, we really want to really be meaningful and strategic this year, thinking about how can we focus on sustainability of the work? How can we use these results as a tool to inform our sustainability planning? How can we strengthen the areas that need strengthening, or maybe share our learnings with others to like move forward together? And so really thinking about it as, not just something we've completed and put away, but how can we use it and make it meaningful to, serve our community? Laura in the chat put the sustainability self-assessment as a refresher if you'd like to open it up and you can look through like, oh, what did each component mean if you just sort of want to refresh yourselves. This is sort of like what we were thinking of in terms of, and what you all went through in terms of the process and where we're envisioning it going. We are going to ask some of you all to, and we have asked some of you all to share, if your council said, hey, we feel really awesome about certain components, we're going to ask that you share those with others in upcoming maybe office hours sessions or in different capacities. So just know that that's likely a ask that is coming, just because we want to be working forward together. As a reminder, the sustainability framework components, there were 9 of them, and you can see them right here. So really thinking through, what does it mean to have a council or an effort be sustainable, knowing that funding is very important, but it is more than funding too. And so asking you all to sort of evaluate the council where it currently stands to use it as a planning tool. And then this was just a reminder of what the scoring rubric looked like. So using the component of collaboration. So the council members were asked to sort of consider these elements of collaboration and score and put a ranking based on where they individually felt the council was at. And then after that, you all came together and decided on sort of a common or combined score. And so what I'm gonna do now is I'm going to be sharing the results of the self-assessments, and we've developed some bar graphs based on each component and where the councils voted. And it doesn't have the name of the council, but it just shows like where the status was. And then there'll be some common themes at the end where councils shared, these were the strengths that we really saw within our councils, and these were the areas where we saw some maybe needs for improvement. So there were 9 councils so far that submitted results, and we are waiting for a couple more. And so those will trickle in, and we'll add them to this results. But we have here on the side the number of responses, the component at the top, and then at the bottom the status. So we have 11 councils, Dana. So 9 out of 11 councils. Yep. So you can see here of the strategic vision, when we asked about, you know, thinking through, does the council like view the work as a part of a long-term approach? Are they all shared and committed to the vision? Things like that. We had 3 councils say awareness, 3 say interaction, and 3 say mastery. So we're across the board there. For collaboration, we have a lot of folks sort of centering on interaction. So where, you know, partnerships are really assessed and expanded, and partners are really engaged in activities and resources are being shared. And then we have a lot of 3 folks saying mastery at this level for collaboration.
Lindsay?
Yes. Sorry, Dana?
Lindsay, are you screen sharing? Are you?
Oh, am I not screen sharing anymore?
I can see it.
Oh,
see.
Okay, I don't know what I'm doing wrong.
Are along the top, are you maybe on the meeting tab versus there's like 2 tabs for me. So there's one that shows
Okay,
the meeting and then one that says Lindsay DeBoer, she, her.
okay, great. Thank
Yeah.
you.
did you
No
find it?
problem.
Okay, awesome.
All right.
Yes, that would be
Thank you.
confusing. No, thank you for saying something. That'll make it a lot more meaningful the rest of the time. Okay, so for our leadership here, we have 1 council that's awareness with leadership, and then we have about 8 that are clustering interaction and mastery for leadership as this, you know, and then communication. A lot of folks voted the council as sort of the interaction level. We have a couple at awareness. Evaluation and ROI sort of varied across the board, with some being awareness, 5 clustering around interaction levels, and 2 councils saying that voted mastery. Capacity, we have a lot of folks mastery here with 5 councils, 3 at interaction and 1 at awareness. For efficiency and effectiveness, we have a lot of folks, a lot of councils saying interaction, with 2 saying mastery, 1 at awareness. Relevance and practicality, 5 at mastery, 3 at interaction, 1 at awareness. And finally, with diversification of funding, this is sort of spread across the board, and we know that this is a challenge, with 2 at pre-awareness, where that would be like a single funding source, interaction where they have a few funding sources, and mastery where it's sort of a variety of funding sources there. When we sort of took a look at the notes that you shared with us to assess them for themes, these were some of the needs that we saw across multiple councils, where the need to increase communication of council activities within the community. So increasing like the promotion of the council and the council's activities beyond the council itself and into the community. Some people suggested increasing media and social media presence to promote council activities. The need to increase and diversify funding sources, to build capacity through training and involvement of community members in planning council activities, engaging additional partners in the work, increasing staffing to support councils and prioritized activities, engaging additional priority populations, and someone specifically called out rural populations, but we thought that was important to add. And then this came across a few times, but really increasing focus on evaluation efforts. So evaluating the impact of the council on the community, and that could be both process and outcome. And it was mentioned that it was a challenge as the work was still new to evaluate long-term outcomes, which can be true. So really trying to focus on demonstrating the impact of the council to sort of like justify the work, keep it moving forward. When we asked, not when we asked, but when we took a look at the strengths that were mentioned, collaboration really stood out as a strength. There were so many folks that said we have really strong collaboration. There are trusted relationships between the council and the communities. The council is a trusted organization by the community. It was shared that the diversity of partnerships and community partners was really a strength, and there was a lot of really good representation on the council. The leadership was also mentioned as a strength, and saying that there were a few councils mentioning how the structure of the council was shifting a lot towards being more council-led as opposed to BBO-led. And then the history of the leadership in the community was viewed as a strength. So the leaders of the council were also trusted leaders of the community, and that was viewed as a strength of the council. Also, relevance and practicality was viewed as a strength, where a lot of the council efforts are being aligned with, and their work is based on the results from local data, so being integrated into CHA and CHIP processes. So a lot of council efforts are really being very data driven, and that was viewed as a strength. So I wanted to thank you all for sharing that with us. We are going to shift to have space to talk about how the process went, how we feel about it, lessons that were learned. And so I just wanted to sort of give the overview of the results first to sort of get that fresh in our minds before we sort of launch into this discussion. And I'm going to turn it over to Laura.
Thank you so much, Lindsay. And hello, everybody. It's good to see you all again in this space. So as Lindsay shared, we went through an overview of what this sustainability self-assessment is. As a refresher, it's always good to revisit. We went through the results. So we got your feedback from those who were able to complete that self-assessment, see where you all think you are at, but we also want to know what your experience was like going through this self-assessment. It's helpful for our team at MDHHS and MPHI so that as we move forward in serving you and your councils, we know what that experience was like for you in completing that self-assessment, how valuable it was, if it was challenging, and where we can continue to support you as you move forward in your sustainability journey, which is really the most important part, is how we continue to move these ideas, these plans forward from what you all have assessed is your capacity to sustain long-term. And the results were exciting. So we have a poll that we are going to launch to get the conversation started. We're going to have you vote here. It popped up on my screen, so it should have popped up on your screen as well. The poll is your experience with the self-assessment. So thinking back on your experience conducting the sustainability self-assessment process, how do you feel it went? You can only choose one of the three options. I know they're pretty general, but we're going to make y'all talk. Shouldn't be surprised. So you got three options. No major challenges. It went well. There were some challenges and we were able to work through them. Maybe you struggled a little bit more in that area, but you can share it. It was challenging. We would like help navigating this with the council. And I see, looks like we'll give you a minute to complete this poll here before we look at the results, and then we'll open it up to have a conversation on why you chose your answer and share a little bit more on that experience. So take a second if you haven't. All right, where are we at with votes? Lindsay, I think are you running the polls?
I am. We have 68%. So if anyone hasn't completed the poll, please go ahead and do so, and I will close it in about like 10 seconds.
Oh, wow. Whew, you have 10 seconds.
10 seconds. Get ready.
There's about 30-ish% of you that really have some thinking to do here in probably 5 seconds. So there's no right or wrong answer. It's totally your experience. All right. So from those who were able to answer, maybe some are still thinking on it a little bit or kind of sitting with those feelings, but 60%, so a large majority of you shared there were some challenges and we were able to work through them. 33% of you said no major challenges. It went really well. So we'll be curious to hear from you all as well. And there was a small group of you that said it was challenging and we'd like help navigating this with the council. So we'll explore that a little bit more as well. But let's hear from our majority first, our 60% of folks who were able to participate, that there were some challenges, but you were able to work through them. I want to know how you worked through them. What was the challenge that your council faced in completing that that sustainability self-assessment, and how were you able to work through that challenge, big or small? Don't be shy. We want to hear from y'all. That was a rhyme. Look at that. It was cool. Yeah, Lindsay's gonna stop sharing so we can see faces, be in this space together.
I'll go.
Let's hear, Dana.
So, we have some awesome people in the tech realm on our team. And so we decided, I don't know if it worked for you guys, but we decided to create a Google Forms and send it out to our council. And then I had realized that we were asked to kind of build consensus with them, which we were not able to do in that time frame. So I had some discussions with Lindsay and Danielle about that piece of it, but we were able. I was happy with the number of people that filled out the Google form, and we were able to, see what their responses were together. And then the last thing that we've learned from our council when we asked them for things in between our monthly meetings that are due in shorter period of time, that they like it on their calendar. So I made sure to go ahead and slip in a calendar invite to ask them to complete the survey, by Friday sometime. So that's my share.
Thank you, Dana. So it sounds like your council found ways to make it easily accessible to your council members so they could complete it. Some gentle reminders. I always appreciate a calendar reminder because it definitely will fall right off of my to-do list if I don't plug something in there. So it sounds like you found some strategies that help to make it as easy as possible for council members to engage in that assessment. Did anyone else in this space use some different strategies here? You said great idea to put it in Google Docs. Yeah, an easy access strategy. Any other ways that you engaged your council in this assessment that worked well, or maybe was more of a challenge?
So this is Tracy with Saginaw. We did ours in a council meeting with our group of people. So they all had, and a lot of them are very paper driven. So we printed out the copies and did it via paper. And that part worked out well. The biggest challenge there was just making sure that everybody had an understanding of what the definitions meant for each of the categories, right? But then the challenge was that, we have a large council, but not everybody attends the meetings. So we did not have a very good representation of people that completed it for us, even though I did send it out via email and asked those who were not, in attendance at the meeting to complete it and return it back to me. So we only had 2 people that did that. So we did not have a very good representation of our council complete the assessment.
Are there any shared experiences here from what Tracy just shared out? Can't hear Tracy well. Can you summarize? Yes. So it sounds like folks on Tracy's council prefer more of like a paper format, but also they have been struggling with participation at their council meetings. So having everybody really complete the sustainability self-assessment was difficult. They felt like they didn't have full representation from council members in completing that sustainability assessment. They did send it out in other ways via email for folks to participate, but still didn't get a lot of participation that way. It sounded like 2 folks had responded via email, which I can relate to in so many of my projects and probably am guilty of myself. But it sounded like maybe concerns that the sustainability self-assessment isn't fully represented by the council members that they have on board because participation was tricky. Nicole, you have your hand raised.
Yeah, so we did ours in person as well, and it just so happened we had scheduled a longer in-person session for that month anyway, and so we decided to allocate that time to go through this assessment. I It went way better than I thought. I thought it was going to be really hard. I thought it was going to be stressful. I was not looking forward to it, if I'm being honest. And it actually went a lot smoother than I thought. So we definitely had materials in front of everyone. We had stuff on the screen. And we really just took our time, like working through everything. And what I found to be the most helpful is that when we would kind of talk through something, the examples really were helpful on the samples that we got. But then I would try to maybe share an example that's pertinent to our council, right? So what would be the equivalent to what our council is doing? Also, everyone was really vocal kind of about what they thought either way, which I thought was really helpful. In terms of attendance, like obviously we didn't have perfect attendance, but the way it works in our council is we operate in like a majority vote when anytime we make a decision. And so that was essentially how we chose our outcomes, was what was the majority that folks were saying. And that helped kind of steer and come up with our scoring system.
Thank you, Nicole. So it sounds like a lot of different strategies based off of knowing your councils, what works best, what needs your council members have, and how you're responding to those needs to help them participate in this sustainability self-assessment. That's a tongue twister. But I'm curious, it sounded like that was a very successful approach and you had some of that in-person time carved out. It was longer time than maybe normal. So helped to really use that space to engage folks. Did anybody else have the opportunity to do an in-person session or another strategy that seemed to work really well?
So I don't know if other people wanted to weigh in, but I know we did a bit of both. We did in person to kind of introduce the tool. I think the tool was a little complicated. I want to say it wasn't the most user-friendly tool. So that's why I like the idea of the Google Drive. I thought that was pretty good to do, to put it in simpler terms. We didn't get 100% participation because we did in person and then we had to hurry and then get people. We actually went through it. Calvin and Lisa actually walked through it. We did the first part of it, but we really wanted each council member to actually do an individual reflection as well. And so we kind of went with that, and then we compiled that data but the struggle I think for that was because there were breakdowns for each of the pieces, components. So when we did the one pager to present it, I felt it wasn't a good representation of the spectrum of where people responded, because we had to consolidate on that one sheet. So it wasn't consistent to where many people did different things. So that's the approach that we took. But I thought it really gave an insight of where people were thinking about their progress and how they did their assessment.
Yeah, thank you for sharing, Poncel. Again, like it's really cool hearing from all of you because then we get kind of a hybrid approach to things as well, and really hearing individually what people's perspectives are and collectively what that looks like. So really appreciate you sharing. I am curious. We had from my memory, I believe there was about 33% of folks who felt like it was really challenging. I'm curious if there's somebody who feels comfortable to kind of share that experience and maybe why it just felt like it didn't go as well as we'd hoped it would go for your council in doing that self-assessment. What was an experience that made it really difficult to feel like it was successful? Would love to hear. If you want to share in the chat or come off mute, we welcome either.
Sorry, I was the one who put one in challenging. I was the number 3, but I just explained it.
Thanks, Poncella. Anybody else want to share that experience? Calvin, go ahead.
Say something. So, I think it was all comprised in what everyone has already said, how the self-assessment was complicated in and of itself from a community level, like how we articulate, or how do we understand what's being articulated to us, and then how do we convey that understanding back? That's a process in of itself that caused a lot of people to kind of like back, you know what I'm saying? It kind of make fearful. So now we get the low level of participation coupled with the low level of participation that some councils are already experiencing. So that coupled with, the thought that we throughout the self-assessments, right, we're talking about how this is to be community driven. And so many of the councils had that struggle, and so it's important to me, that like a part of the sustainability be that we understand, the complexity from a community level, of us being able to understand and articulate and digest this, this academic information. You know what I mean? Like, if some of us are capable, you know what I'm saying? But that isn't true for everybody. And that creates a whole web of things, you know what I mean? And so with that, you know what I'm saying, that becomes the challenge, you know what I'm saying? How do we have the time, you know what I'm saying, to identify, and strengthen the community so that it can then in turn strengthen itself, And so those are some of the things that I felt, from and I think everybody kind of like shared it, you know what I'm saying? And landed in their spaces, but I wanted to make sure that it's important that a part of the same sustainability be understood that like the community has to understand that they're leading the work, or is it working? You know what I'm saying?
Make a note of that. Yeah, I really value that feedback, Calvin. And again, this is also what we wanted to hear was, maybe not just challenging and how your council navigated this, but the tool itself might have been challenging. And that's what we're hearing. And I apologize, Poncel, because you mentioned that right at the top, that this tool was kind of difficult to digest. And even as council leads or as BBOs, if it's difficult to kind of take it, and then how is it going to be translated out to my council and their different needs as well, and have it make sense to them, the purpose for it, or kind of how it's even used. And yeah, it's really helpful for our team to hear that, so that as we move forward, we can also evaluate what we're building out as tools and what we're sharing with and for all of you to serve your council. So we really appreciate hearing that feedback and knowing that we can take that back and make necessary changes so that it better serves the needs of councils moving forward. And definitely difficult to kind of, I know our team was diving through so much information and translating it ourselves. And it's just a big conversation to have. And sustainability is not one approach. There's so many different approaches to being a sustainable organization. So even thinking about where to start with that conversation would be really tricky. So I really appreciate that thoughtful feedback and allowing our team to consider how we can improve moving forward as well, and really building out more time for councils to navigate these discussions. So thank you. Is there any other challenges, successes that we want to share out in this space? I don't even know where we're at with time. So I'm just I'm looking at Lindsay and Danielle every once in a while to see if they like give me the hook here. Brian came off mute.
Yeah, I'll just talk. I wanted to follow up on some of these things that Calvin said. So we actually did ours in 2 virtual sessions, hour and a half each. And because of the complex nature of the tool, we really want to make sure that we took it pretty slowly, step by step or element by element, and really focused on explaining, the matrix for each of the elements that were there. So we went through it, one by one. And the first virtual session, we used a poll in Zoom to kind of have them score it after they're given a chance to get explained to them and have time to ask any questions about the different scoring, levels in each element. And so that worked okay. And then the one challenge we had was like getting people to come to consensus. Like half of them would score 3, half of them would score 4. And then we said, okay, let's talk about this. Let's figure out like where are we going to land. And so I think that was a challenge for us, is to get people to come to a consensus and get that final score for each element. But we did okay. And actually our attendance was pretty good. I was surprised because I thought as other people are experiencing, our meetings are kind of slowing down in terms of attendance. So I thought this was going to be something like, oh, we're not going to do that. But actually, a lot of people showed up to both sessions. So I was pleased with that. I think one thing was that I thought people would be more critical of the work that we're doing. And I think people scored higher than I thought that they would. Especially sometimes I would say, I really want you to be honest about this and speak the truth to this, and don't feel like it's going to be, showing negatively if we do score lower. And I think one of the things that we had going for us too is we had just done an evaluation of the council itself. And so we kind of frame this as an additional evaluation to find out how we're operating as a council. So I think that kind of helped people's understanding of it and how it could be used. So I just wanted to mention that too. Our second virtual session, we kind of scrapped the polls and went just with a verbal kind of discussion about the scoring. And so that went fine too. So we're able to squeeze it into two sessions. But the thing that Calvin mentioned is the leadership from the community members. And I think that's one thing that we heard loud and clear, was that people kept saying like, oh, you're doing a great job on this, or you're doing well, like Kent County Health Department as the backbone organization. And we kind of kept saying like, this is not us, it's all of us doing this work, right? And so I think that's what we came out of this with, is like, how do we change that mindset? How do we change it so people understand that this is a community effort in terms of what we're doing, as opposed to the backbone organization leading it? Obviously, we do a lot of the work behind the scenes, but we really want to try to move that, change the mindset of the people involved, so we can make sure that it's a collective effort that we're working on, and not just the backbone organization. So that was kind of our experience.
Thank you for sharing that, Brian. That's really helpful. I see there's a question prompted at you in the chat that I don't want to lose sight of. Poncella asked, what was the tool or process used to evaluate the council itself? If you want to share about that a little bit.
Sure. Thanks for the question. So we, during our first year of the council, we actually got a third-party evaluator to come in and kind of take us through a process evaluation. So we did some focus groups, and also just a survey that we used for our council members. So we sent the survey out via a link. It was, I think, Qualtrics we used, and so we had all the members answer it, and we did kind of have a lack of participation in that. So I think we did not get all of our members to complete the survey. So that was during our first year. We actually did it again just this past year. We modified our survey just based upon some things that we wanted to know about people's experience with the council. But we did the same thing. We actually had it done. We had people fill out the survey at one of our in-person meetings, I think August meeting. So that we were hoping to get better participation by just giving them time within the meeting itself to fill that out via their phone or other digital methods. So we still didn't get a great response, because after we had people fill it out in that survey or that meeting, we did send it out via email and just didn't get a great response. So, but I'm happy to share our tool with you, Poncella, if you want. It just asks several different components about participation, like what are barriers to your participation? Like, do you feel heard? Do you feel represented? Do you feel like you're bringing the voice of your community to the table? Do you feel like the health equity councils have any impact in the community? So communication, there's all sorts of different components to it. So, but I'm happy to share the tool that we used with others.
Yes, please.
Calvin, go ahead.
Dang, Brian, that was powerful. The third party investigation, that sounds like, for the council, to kind of like measure where the council is. But I think like you kind of address exactly what it is that we're hearing. We heard something when people are hesitant to make a decision, on a particular question, and then you're hearing the you guys did a great job. So now what we're hearing is that the community still doesn't feel like its voice is being heard, but it's doing whatever what it needs to be doing in order to, fulfill the obligations. And so with that thought in mind, right, that contributes to some of the inconsistency in the participation. And I found that a lot of what it is that we've done has been short term in nature. You know what I'm saying? And so now we're taking something that is short term in nature and say, let's think about this for a long term. You know what I mean? So like when everybody is thinking about like, I can't commit to this because I'm not sure of it's lasting. I don't know if I could trust it. You know what I'm saying? And so that is a prevalent issue. So when I think of this thing, I look at it from like a pendulum. You know what I'm saying? Like it could shift this way, or it could teeter this way. You know what I mean? But there are things that we know that are our strength. There are certain community members who are present, who are giving who are looking to articulate this information, who are acting as liaison, you know what I'm saying, so that we can come across with the adequate solution. So I don't want to lose that part in the sustainability, that there are a number of community members that are working in these councils that are genuinely interested in it, making and seeing these things work. But like, what does that look like for us, in terms of capacity? You know what I mean? And so those are some of the key things that I'm seeing consistently, even in the answer to the question. I can tell you what it is that you want to know, but do really understand what it is that I'm saying. That becomes another thing. I hope I got it there. I hope I provided some clarity. Sorry about that. Thanks, though, Brian.
Yeah, I appreciate you saying that, Calvin, because I remember you talking about this at a previous meeting, and I think that's one thing we struggle with. And even some of our comments on the evaluation that we said, people were saying, I didn't know this was going to last this long, and so I don't know if we ever really gave them a kind of a scope of how long we were planning on working on the council together. So yeah, so I agree that it's that shifting from that short term sort of impact to like, this is something that we need to kind of continue to work on, and maybe it's figuring out how do we rotate membership in the council and things like that. So, but yeah, you bring up a lot of great points.
Yeah, this is all great feedback. And I think really part of that sustainability process too is that as you're starting to think about what this looks like long term, revisiting kind of what those roles and responsibilities and expectations are of those council members that maybe initially looked a lot different when it was starting up, and then capacity building. And we've gotten through these different steps of kind of strengthening the council by being a new council, building capacity, adding on additional members, kind of thinking strategically about what a work plan looks like. The roles and expectations might shift a little differently from initially what it was expected when we pulled those people together. And I think it's also okay to revisit that and see where folks are at in that process, and how they can contribute, or how they feel they can contribute as you move forward. in this next phase of being a council, because certainly all of your councils have elements that are sustainable long-term in so many different ways, but also that takes your council members and contributing to that sustainability. So knowing where they're at and ensuring that they have an understanding of where you want to go and that it all aligns together as a council is really important. So sometimes they're some difficult conversations, but they're also necessary conversations to make sure that everyone that's on your council is moving forward in that direction. Chandra, your hand is raised.
Excuse me, good afternoon. Just want to present a slightly different perspective. I believe I touched on it at a previous meeting, but I think it's really important to share now, especially with some different people on the call. I know that Danielle said in the beginning that you guys are looking at, like additional funding and kind of what's next, and the focus is through 2025. I still think that there needs to be, from my perspective as an individual, I see a great opportunity for the role of the state to kind of go through a similar process, meaning that I think many, if not all of the councils, we greatly appreciate the coordination, the information, the space, the support, and the vision that's being provided from the state, as well as the creating at least an opportunity for some shared understanding around what sustainability looks like. So the point being that I don't know that there's been any evaluation around your role. And so I do think that the opportunity for each of the councils to grow, to be strengthened, and to increase their sustainability is at least partially, not wholly, but is partially related to them being in partnership with the state. And so as there hasn't been clarity around the sustainability of what you guys are going to be doing, I think that also has a unmeasured and unintended and even unknown impact on how much that is impacting the group. So I say that to say that what would be ideal is if you all could identify, let's say, at least 2 to 5 year funding for you to do what you do and to provide support to the councils, then that would dramatically impact, I believe, what each of the councils are able to do. And I think, needs to be a recognition that this kind of work takes time. And so when you come together for one purpose and then that purpose evolves, so we all acknowledge that this came together as a response to COVID. Now, what we're responding to now, it still has that foundation, but there's so much more that's also at stake. And because I think everybody is so committed and passionate about this super important issue, that a lot just kind of gets rolled into what seemingly is simple, but this is a very complex issue. So again, I'm just recommending for the state to actually be more aggressive in its pursuit of funding for the role that you play, as well as the role that you can play to support fundings for the councils, and to give the councils a greater ramp up time to say, hey, we want to be impactful. We are still figuring out, like, who are we going to be separate from you? But I think that it's always been a very, very short runway. And I think that that's been very significant in how the councils have developed. And I don't know that there's been any evaluation of that yet. And I think that in and of itself is hopefully reason to actually secure funding, to even evaluate that, as well as to cure it.
I 100% support what you're saying. And yeah, this was definitely like, I think started out as like that like mattress with a little leaky air where you're just like, let me throw a patch on it and then we'll keep going. And now we're like 3 years down the road. So, I just want to say, like, I definitely hear and fully acknowledge the challenges that come from constantly starting to end work to then ramp it back up to end it to then, yeah, it has. We started in August of 22, and this will be our third year of doing this, which is quite wild when you think about it. But yeah, that can definitely create a lot of challenges, and I think that that's a big part of why I'm hoping, at least in terms of the opportunity with FIG, as that is like a 5-year funding source, that we would be able to get them to agree to something that is more long-term, and like not a, well, we'll see when we write our budget for like that grant year, or like we'll see. Because I think that that has been a challenge when it comes to kind of the partnerships that we can create throughout MDHHS and state of Michigan. And then, yeah, I think, spending more of my time thinking about what are some of the longer term funding sources and how those nestle and align with the interests that you all have. Because coalition work is not work that happens overnight. It's not work that happens in the first 90 days. And so that's why we create a lot of the space. That's why we always want to really talk with you all about what makes sense and how your council functions, and how we can be supportive of that. So I want to acknowledge, because I know that we've talked about that a lot, Chandra, around the funding cycle and like the challenges of that. And so it's still on my to-do list. It's definitely something that is a focus. But I can see how it has, I think, created some definite impacts in the conversations we're hearing today.
Chandra, your hand is still raised. We just want to make sure.
I'll lower it. Thank you.
No worries. No worries. We always just want to make sure there is space where folks need it. So always appreciate, we are at 2 o'clock. I want to make sure that we stay on time here, but we always appreciate the feedback that you share, whether it's feedback that feels difficult to share or feedback that feels difficult to hear. It is okay. This is what has allowed us to continue to grow in this project and allowed us to continue to better serve you as council. So again, I just want to make sure that you all know that we appreciate all of the feedback that you're always willing to share in this space, but also really providing that thoughtful feedback that supports us in continuing to grow and better serve your needs. So thank you for having such a fruitful large group discussion here. And we have some next steps, knowing that there's some things that our team is going to take back.
I had like a question that I was just going to ask folks. I think considering the feedback that was shared around how to use the tool, I think want to open it up to ask, do you feel like the challenges you encountered doing the self-assessment are the same challenges that you'll encounter developing your sustainability plan? Yes, no. Thumbs up, thumbs down, if you have that react button. Oh, thanks, Mansella. Okay. No, that's good for us to know in terms of how we think about TA, office hours, future collaborative meetings, in terms of how we can support the sustainability plan. And, always reminding folks about we are a TA resource, in addition to being the funder and the evaluator, all those things. So, as you run into some of those challenges, the sooner you can let us know, the sooner that we can be responsive and supportive and assist as you need us to. Sorry, Laura, I'll let you go. Oh, Lindsay has her hand up.
Yeah, I just wanted to just say that because you've turned in these results, that doesn't mean that this discussion has to end, or this was something for us to sort of collect some information, and to help you all like have discussions and dialogue with your councils as you all move forward. So this isn't like, okay, this is it, this is the end. So I mean, just knowing that this could be a place where you open up and continue having discussions about certain pieces, or if something needs to be explained more, that can totally be done. It's not like we're all done now. So we wanted to have this conversation to know that, this is definitely an important piece. Sustainability planning is something that, oftentimes we don't have a lot of time to do. And so we really want to be, thoughtful about it and supportive in the ways that you all need. And for you all, your council together, to be thinking of what do we need, together to move forward. So just thinking about this as a tool and not sort of like a stop point. Yeah, Pansella?
Sorry, I don't mean to be the last word.
No, it's fine.
I think what would have been helpful and maybe going forward is having this framework of assessment at the beginning of the council, so that we have some ideas, we kind of monitor and look at our work, and we know we're looking at it through the lens of these categories. That would have been helpful too. I just want to throw that out there as a lesson.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you all. And I mean, this is a team effort, but we'll just wrap it up in saying, as Lindsay and Danielle shared, this is not an end game with sustainability planning. And as some of you have shared, again, there's ways that we can improve certainly on our end, but maybe through this process of self-assessment, you found that there's just more discussion needed on sustainability and really getting the council to come to maybe a stronger shared understanding of what that sustainability means for your council. So this really, if nothing else, is a really great starting point, and continuing to strengthen those conversations, keeping in mind that we are here to be responsive to any technical assistance that you need. So as you're navigating your sustainability planning, or maybe leaning more into those conversations because you felt like there's still kind of a disconnect, or maybe folks just need a little bit more time to sit with what sustainability really means, we are here to help you in whatever that capacity looks like for technical assistance. So please use us to support those efforts, knowing that that tool maybe was just a little more complicated than it needed to be. So please tap into us in whatever way we can support you in the sustainability planning moving forward. And keep in mind, you have each other always. I think we never have to remind you, because you do such a great job of sharing your resources and tools back and forth with each other, but utilize each other as councils to learn. I'm sure a lot of you are going through similar and shared experiences, even though you have different members and different challenges, you really can learn from each other. And we find that every time we come together in this space. And we will also be very intentional in using our office hours upcoming to present some different tools and concepts that you can use or take back to your councils as you continue to walk through sustainability planning. So those could be quality improvement tools. If you have found your council is really identified a key area that you just feel like needs some strength in, we'll be providing you some different tools and some upcoming office hours and some different practices that we use that help to guide through that process. So power mapping will be one of those. Again, quality improvement and some of the tools that we use will be something that we'll share out with you all. But also, again, let us know what would be helpful so that we can be responsive in those spaces as well and use those office hours to your advantage, not to ours. So please continue to keep us in the loop of your needs as councils, and we can continue to grow. Dottie came off mute. I have eagle eyes, so.
Hi, I just want to know, do you have the next date of the office hours?
No.
Yeah, it is November 20th.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
Perfect. All right. Any questions on the sustainability self-assessment piece. I know there's some things that maybe we still need to really go back and look at as a team on our end to make sure we're supporting you. Are there any questions that we can answer before I pass it over to Danielle?
I just have one quick question. Can we still feed results of the survey to you for people we haven't gotten them? Okay, all right.
Yeah, absolutely.
Laura, I have a thought more so than a, I don't know if it's a question or it's just a thought, right? So when I saw like diversity and funding with the council, I saw council who said that they were at the mastery level. It was like three councils said that they were at the mastery level in terms of funding, diversifying the funding in terms of the council. So when I look on the other end of the spectrum, there are people who only have single source of funding, right? How do we look at this mastery level to funding and incorporate it, you know what I'm saying, that strategy into these areas where people don't, they only got a single source of funding? What did these people at the mastery level do that we need to be doing so we can be at the mastery level with funding? I'm asking.
Calvin, I'm so glad, and I saw Danielle come up here. I'm telling you guys, I have eagle eyes. I'm watching all of you. Calvin, I'm so glad that you said that because that was also something I was supposed to say. So you just were like helping to facilitate this meeting for me. We will also we will also be tapping into our other councils. So folks who rated themselves as being at mastery level and are very confident in areas of their sustainability assessment, we will be reaching out to you. So do not be surprised if you get a little friendly email, or maybe we'll call you if we don't hear from you, but we will be reaching out. Yeah, we will be reaching out to you folks too, because we want to know like what are some examples of how you work through those challenges and really feel like you are strong in that area, and we have some best practices or we have some examples that we've identified as a council. So we will tap into those councils and see kind of where folks were rating themselves, who felt very strong in that area, and we'll have them be sharing out at upcoming office hours as well, because the best way that you all learn is really from sharing your experiences. You know better as councils than we do in what works and what doesn't work. So thank you so much for kind of getting that thought out, Calvin, because that was the literal bullet point that I just totally missed on this slide. But we are going to be doing that as well, is contacting y'all, ones who felt that they were mastery in that area, and have you be sharing your tips and tricks so that you can learn from each other. So thank you, Calvin. Any other questions, or if I didn't read something on the slide, if there's something I need to say, y'all let me know, or I will really pass it over to Danielle now. I think we're good.
Okay, cool. Um, so we've been already talking a little bit, a lot. It's good. We really wanted to give more space for everyone to kind of learn from one another. Um, so one of the kind of, I think, pieces that I think everyone can kind of tap in or kind of share some of their insights of how they've kind of been dealing with this bit of a challenge is around the engagement element. So over, I would say, the last few months, throughout various check-ins, I've, heard in different ways, shapes, or forms, varied levels of engagement from council members as a bit of a challenge or a difficulty that people were seeing on the horizon. And we've kind of even seen that this conversation foreshadowed as we talked about the sustainability plan and getting folks to complete the self-assessment. Some of the challenges that folks were able to share with us kind of centered around kind of that vision. Where are they seeing themselves in terms of the alignment with the work, or the reduced funding, and how there may be some challenges around prioritizing the work or deciding where should we focus our energy. Particularly seeing a lot of that as we are just really reduced in terms of our funding, not for those that have been doing mini grants, not able to do those anymore, or now may only be able to do, you know, 1 or 2 focus projects for this fiscal year. And then kind of that concerns about responsibility, I think ties back to these first 2 bullets, kind of looking at it as like BBO versus the membership, the accolades going to the BBO, but also the responsibilities of the council existing coming back to the BBO in terms of needing the BBO to identify those funding sources, needing them to be the one that makes the difficult decisions. And so maybe the council doesn't feel comfortable with a shared decision-making structure, or that they would, I've seen this go one of 2 ways. It's like, we don't want to make any decisions, or we no longer enjoy a we want to make all of our decisions, and you all can just kind of manage paperwork for us. And so that is kind of what we have seen. But wanted to see if others have had that experience. And if so, if you would like to share a little bit about that challenge that you've been experiencing. I think a lot of people have been feeling a bit alone around this, and like are unsure that others are going through it.
Now, I don't want me and Calvin be the only ones talking.
That's what I was gonna, I mean, you're welcome to
but-
talk,
Come
Console.
on, y'all. We all got to pitch in on this one.
Mhm.
I will say that this is a struggle because I think there is sort of like bipolar. Bipolar is like, you know, it's like going back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. I'm pretty clear about what I think should happen. But understand the process. So there's 3 things. One is, I know we talk about we talk about health equity councils. I still have a question about the role, like who are they? What is the niche? What are they doing? So that's sort of a question around that. So how do we make sure we go through a process through the sustainability plan that is defined? And then the role of BBO, you know, and I haven't shared this publicly, I don't think, with too many people, but I feel like, you know, how do we get the DHC specifically to be able to be on their own, and then at the BBO is just the fiduciary support of the group, but they have to be in a structure, because that's our, you know, they have to be in some kind of a structure that is sustainable, so they can actually leverage funding and function as a group of people and have a process and have an infrastructure and those kinds of things. So I feel like that's where those are my concerns, is getting there so that it can be this sustainable, this group. But how do you, so I just feel like that's where I feel like I want to know what everybody else around the table, around the state is doing in that regard. So I'm just putting it out there. I didn't put it out there, now it's out there.
Thanks, Pansala. Yeah, so I think Pansala gave us a lot of kind of additional questions to ask, to learn about everyone around like what's your niche, like what is important to you, and like how does that fit in? And then you mentioned the long-term element to Pansala. And so I think everyone is pretty unique. I can personally give that rundown of just, I think we see folks who are focusing on like mental health, language access, community safety, overall kind of economic development, health literacy, doing some overall community outreach through community events, community health worker activities, and thinking about nutrition and physical education elements, as well as youth development. So those would be like the big buckets across all 11 councils. But I think, do others have anything that they want to share about this particular challenge or difficulties that they've been experiencing?
I think one of the things that we're really thinking through in our community is we're really lucky. We have a lot, like multiple strong universities that prioritize community engagement and community feedback. And so we've reached this a couple times with our committee is there's a group that's been developed out of our local Michigan State University College of Human Medicine, and they are focused on social determinants of health, and it's all about residents and community. And I think the thing that we're really thinking about in terms of sustainability is rolling our Health Equity Council into that group when this project wraps. And the logic behind that is our group wants to do the work. They don't want to do like the administration, right? Like that's not entertaining for them. Like they want to do the work. And so if we're able to roll into an established university group, then we know the administration is managed. And then it's kind of like the best of both worlds, right? So they get to do the work that they really enjoy to do, and they don't have to worry about the administrative components of it. And that's what we've been talking about for at least a year, because when we think about the work that we've been doing and we think about this other group that will be there for many, many years, no doubt. Sometimes I think just those partnerships and collaborations make a lot of sense. And I think this in our instance makes a lot of sense.
Go ahead, Calvin.
So first, I want to thank all y'all because as a community member, I can say that it's rare that we get an opportunity to have these kinds of conversations. So the Health Equity Council work in that regard. And so with that thought in mind, right, I remember I heard a speaker, Michael Johnson, say that like as organizations, our client is the funder. And so when we got these leaders, right, from out of these communities, when BBOs got these leaders from out of the community begins to say, like, how do we sustain this funding? Now we got to adhere to what the BBO desires to do. And so the BBO is saying to us, look, it's community driven. Y'all got to make a shared decision. And so things like Nicole was just talking about, like the social determinants of health, like when we look at the 11 categories that you talk about, Danielle, all that falls up under like your social determinants of health. You know what I'm saying? We got a model that we can utilize, you know what I'm saying, to extract community violence. You know what I'm saying? We can lack of access to healthcare. You know what I'm saying? We got public health models, but the thing is the level in which our communities are with regards to that information that are on our council. So there's an uncomfortability, if you will, if I don't know certain information. And so so there begin this, there's this resistance as a result. So the trick is like being able to see these things through a bigger scale. When we think about community violence, we think about harm reduction, we think about human trafficking. I can find all that in public health, you know what I'm saying, in the social ecological model, you know what I'm saying, or the social determinants of health. How do we connect our council with this information so that they can grow and understand that there's these various pockets that we can take our councils into, as Nicole has suggested? Maybe it's not a university. I think that community should be within the community. Like community should be given the same tools that the university has because we speak a different language, you know? And so I just think of it from that lens, community understanding that they first need to be equipped with the information that needs to be utilized in order for them to address some of those things that they need to be addressed. And that isn't a trick. That don't mean that like institutions are trying to trick us. You know what I'm saying? And so being able to have that transparent kind of communication and saying, this is what it is that I believe, this is what it is I think, without all these narratives being created as a result. So narrative is a part of the problem. You know what I'm saying? Narrative shifting is something that we have to do, in order to deal with this. But how do we institute it, in terms of council? Because as a council member that is a community member also, that's a co-chair, sometimes I look like, you know what I'm saying, I'm company man, you know what I mean? You can put a bad image on me because, you know what I mean? And the community won't trust me, you know what I'm saying? So those things have to be monitored as well. That's my thoughts.
Um, um, so for, I guess, anyone who maybe has experienced some engagement challenges in the past, but maybe has been able to overcome them. Does anyone want to share what they've been able to do or integrate into their work? Thanks so much, Nicole. Yeah. Oh, anyone from maybe Saginaw, Oakland, Macomb, Muskegon, Ingham, Ottawa. Thanks, Dana.
Will you repeat the question?
Yeah, if you have had any engagement challenges with your council, so
Mhm.
whether that was attendance with meetings, kind
Sure.
of you know, getting them to complete the self-assessment, how were
Yeah.
you able to overcome those? What did you integrate?
Okay. So some things we've done differently is tracking attendance. And then sometimes people received specialized messages if we hadn't heard from them. We had a contract with our ATC members that speaks to attendance, and so we've tried to also bring that back up during meetings. And what we landed with, which is something that I love and reuse, is it wasn't necessarily that, you really have to attend 100% participation. It's the communication piece. We need to be communicated with to know if you're not coming, let us know. If you missed and you see that you missed a couple days out, let us know. We just want to hear from you. And then something else we're doing and looking at is introducing to our council and seeing if they'll agree to it is a restructuring of the pay. And so that would be something that is based on your participation. And then if you're not able to participate, then something different would happen. I love many to all of our HEC council members. I would hate to lose what they get out of attending meetings, even if we don't see them often. But then there's also just that fiscal responsibility. So hopefully they'll stay with us and be okay. And if not, that's okay too, because we're looking at those reductions in pay. Um, I do see Dottie's hand. I don't know if I should call on someone or be quiet.
That's totally fine, Dana. Invite more people into the conversation.
Sure.
Welcome, Daddy.
Yeah, I just want to address the piece about the engagement. I find that our council are not engaged with each other. And for me, that's is a problem that they're not engaging with each other. They come to meetings and um that's about it. I don't think, someone knows what organization the person is sitting next to and what they do. So as a result of that, we developed a resource guide of all the organizations and asked for their services, what they provide, what the organizations provide. And we also are adding a page with just our community members and the groups and the neighborhoods that they recommend that they represent. And so that hasn't been, we're working on that now, but hopefully that would help them to know that they might be sitting next to an organization that serves people that they might not know about, or have resources that they don't know about that they might need. There's resources all around the table, and it behooves me that people don't know what someone on the other side of the table, what their organization do. We have Salvation Army, who we know is a big organization, so we know what Salvation Army do, and we have one other organization that they probably know what they do, but for other organizations, they don't know what they, what services they provide. We have a community health uh, community health organization on what, and I bet they don't know all the services that they provide. So hopefully this resource guide that we did will help them in the work that they do. So that's the engagement piece that I it just behooves me that, and I guess maybe it's just because of me. I know I would go around and be like, okay, what do you do? And what's your service? And da 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 da. But um our council seems to be kind of lax in 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 engaging with each other. And we did thought about maybe getting together for Christmas and just having um, a little hour social thing without, don't talk about work and that type of thing, to get to know somebody. But that was shot down. So we're looking at hopefully the resource guy would help. So that's hopefully that won't be a challenge next time I say something about it.
I
Oh,
like,
the bipolar part of the work.
yeah, no, I like that idea of doing a guide so that people know each other and can connect. Um, Dana asked if your resource guide was paper or like digital, if you'd be willing to share it.
Oh, sure. I'd be
Okay,
willing to share. Yep,
awesome.
absolutely. Probably within a week or so it'd be finished.
Yeah. No, I think that that's a really great idea. Really encourage people to leverage the partnerships that they're
Yeah,
getting out of the council. Um,
absolutely.
Anyone else wanted to share how they've been able to work to overcome some of their challenges? Thanks, Brian.
Yeah, I was going to say to Dottie's point, I think, we did a really good job of that in the beginning to bring people together and have them work together and get to know each other and engage with each other. And I think as the work has gotten deeper, we've gotten away from that. So I think we really need to kind of get back to that. We've talked about it, the need to spend more time just like networking and talking and being with each other as opposed to always getting to the nitty gritty. I think one of the challenges we have or concerns we have is like we maybe have extended people too big, too far, with the getting people involved in the community health improvement plan and the social determinants of health hub. And so they're getting engaged with hospital systems and their implementation strategies from the community health improvement plan. And that's kind of what we saw as the need for this, is to bring community voice to the table and on all these different things. But sometimes we worry that we're overwhelming them with just bringing all this stuff to them and having their input on it. So that's kind of one thing that we're kind of reassessing in terms of how we approach that. We do have check-ins. I think we have like every 6 months or so, we have check-ins with the members of the council. But one thing that we've been talking about doing is really kind of noticing or reaching out to people if they're not at a meeting. I think that we get concerned, like there's this big group of people, and if I don't show up, do they really even notice? Do they even really care? And so trying to figure out a way to like reach out to them and say, hey, we noticed that you were not at the meeting this past time. This is what we talked about, kind of that direct communication. So did you have any thoughts about this? So I think that we just don't want people to kind of fall by the wayside and say, hey, I'm not showing up, and nobody really cares. So we're just trying to figure out some things around that and seeing how we can remedy some of that. We haven't put that into place yet, but we're just we talked a lot about that at our last meeting about how to re-engage people.
I really, really appreciate that, Brian. I was in a meeting just before this, and the person said, instead of framing it as, you're late or like you didn't show up, hey, we see that you didn't make it. Hope everything is okay, or like we know that you're still think that the work is important. But just kind of like more of like a check-in on the person rather than like you didn't do your task. And Lindsay gave you, well, that's a little arm. But saying that they really like that. Jason from Ingham's Council said that there are various health equity programs taking place countywide, and that they make a conscious effort to invite folks to attend those events with them. So, I think I have a couple more questions on that next slide, Lindsay, don't I? I think we've kind of started to touch on them, but you've shared some of, so thinking about the challenges, you've been able to share some of the ways that y'all have been able to keep people engaged, having that resource/contact list, having those touch point meetings, thinking about ways to kind of track attendance and hold people accountable with grace, kind of specialized invites. I think just about everyone has gotten at least one personalized phone call from me at some point over the last 3 years. So, just finding the way or the connection point that makes sense for how that person communicates. It can be difficult at times, but I think it allows there to be a deeper engagement in the work. And then, of course, starting out with a lot of intentionality or figuring out what is the balance between fellowship or like social connection and um getting the work done. So if there are ways, if folks can't make a second meeting in the month, to have one that's business and one that's fellowship, what are some like maybe enjoyable things that you can integrate into a meeting? Maybe you start out with like just sharing an intention that that person has for the month, or, something that they're really proud of that they want to share, whether that's something their organization did or that they did themselves. Those can be some ways to create additional, touch points. And then I pose another question to folks of the ideas that you've heard, from other councils. What do you think you'd like to incorporate or that you would like to learn more about?
I think I keep mentioning this. I feel like this is really important. So I heard on here a couple of people talked about, I love the resource manual or the guide. I thought that was really good, but I think it leads to the understand the ecosystem and the landscape of this work. I still feel like I'm drowning in a sea of letters. And so understanding the flow from the state level, just to kind of just know where we are in the ecosystem as council members, like what does that look like, and how is there a network of partnerships? I feel like I still don't understand a lot. I know that's a big deal, and that's going to take a little bit of time to unpack. But I feel like we need to devote some time to just that. That would be really helpful, because we can understanding the resources and the connections and the people who are doing the work. The landscape will be helpful. It'd be helpful to start defining even the role of the council. So having, even if it's just in regional wide or something, but at the state level, at the county level, at the federal level. So anyway, like what's going to happen with the state? That's, I just have a bunch of questions. So how do we understand the landscape and how resources are flowing and all that? So analysis.
Yeah, that's definitely a big question with I think different things to kind of unpack around. When you say the role of the council, are you saying like kind of what is their charge, or
Well, I mean, in order for the council to really define what they want to become, I mean, because it could evolve, but I think understanding who we are in the ecosystem. So I feel like we're operating, I feel like, me personally, I would speak for myself, operating from a deficit, because I don't really understand the landscape in all its parts. I don't have to be involved in all of it, but just to understand, have at least a landscape mapping of just when federal dollars come to the state and how that looks across who are doing what resources and under the auspice of health equity, right? I feel like there's a lot of people doing a lot of health equity work. What is all that, and how do we figure out who we are in the midst of this landscape?
Okay, yeah, I think that's totally valid. Um, I think part of that we collectively on this call have been defining that throughout this period of time. But I think that it doesn't hurt to talk more about it and spend some time to really unpack that in a way that maybe anyone who needs to can share that with their council members. Like I said, the engagement has been a challenge for folks over the last few months, so there may be some contracting and expansion that we see of council, so they may benefit from having that context of, like you said, the funding flow down and like how does everything intersect in terms of in a perfect world, right? Like we have like that ideal state of what it's meant to look like. And I can, speak to some of that now. But I think can be helpful to have some of the visuals to go with that. But really the end goal here, and part of why we spend some time really trying to elevate the outcomes and the success of the councils to other state partners is to kind of situate the council as someone who can be a go-to, kind of act as a voice for the communities that are within each of your regions, so county or city, and help to drive the work that's happening. So, I would say several of the councils have found ways to integrate them into their CHA and CHIP cycle, which is community health needs assessment and community health improvement plan. Um, and so those processes are a big part of like what a health department is going to do in terms of services and programs that go forward. We've also, tried to find ways to integrate these viewpoints into the state health improvement plan and state health assessment. So having folks from councils on those work groups. So really trying to find ways to position you all in the influential touch points. Kind of when I say influential, I'm talking like deciding programming, etc. Can definitely think more about what that looks like in like an actual slide rather than just me talking about it. And then, yeah, I see what you put in the chat, Pansala, around are these kind of things that you would like to see, things that you feel are important, right? So the power analysis mapping, funding mapping, policy mapping, health equity services mapping. Want to bring back the eco map. We're mapping, so thinking about those partnerships as well, and so that can be kind of a leverage point for us to be able to, I think, touch on some of those other maps that you've identified. Other thoughts that people have to share around what they want to integrate, what they feel is kind of missing. I think the feedback that you all have been giving so far is really wonderful and super helpful for us. So please share.
Hey, this is Dana.
Hi, Dana.
It's been helpful to revisit with our former Health Equity Council grantees from last time and this time. And so some of the projects we've done, like the Photo Voice project that we're still working on, former and current grantees were invited to the spaces. And also, like the emails that you'll send, I'll think about maybe specific groups to forward it on to. And we do share outs at the end of our Health Equity Council meetings. And so I also think about, and this is with our council members, but going into their spaces as well. And so it's been nice to get out and about and see another Health Equity Council member or know that this is something, that we know about through our Health Equity Council. Just love thinking about this web of community-based organizations and connections that we're weaving, and love this conversation as I think about like how do we deepen it and deepen it to give support as well as tie them to each other when it makes sense.
Thanks so much, Dana. Anyone else want to share their kind of thoughts, insights, learnings from today? Hey. Well, I think the big part that I really wanted to uplift with this is, um, this is not, I think a lot of folks felt like this was a singular challenge around how do I kind of get my council to opt back in? They keep thinking the work is ending and we keep coming back to them. And so, realizing that this is not a just your council issue, but also there are other ways that people have figured out to kind of tease out methods to address this. If you want to connect with anyone offline, definitely message them or reach out to me if you don't get a chance to connect with them. And we can start that email thread. And if you are still facing challenges or feel like it would be beneficial to have some TA, so some technical assistance or support, also email our team so that we can assist in whatever way makes the most sense. But we still got y'all for like another 11 months. So want to be able to ensure that we have the most successful outcomes we can and be as supportive as we can throughout that time. I think other than that, the next slide is just a reminder about the meeting date. So our next collaborative meeting will be towards the end of February. It should be on your calendar. If it's not, let us know. We'll make sure you have that Zoom link. Otherwise, we will be likely revisiting this conversation and many more around the sustainability core components. If you are still gathering feedback from your council, continue to share that with us because that is how we know how to tailor our future TA. And then, just we'll see ya on your next check-in. Office hours are on Wednesday. We'll be asking folks to share about elements of mastery that they have and kind of those examples. And, you can kind of learn from each other if it's something you want to do yourself. So have a wonderful Tuesday.
Thank you. Yeah, it's Tuesday. Thank you.
I'm moving through the week now. I'm like, let's go right to the weekend.
Bye, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Bye,
Thanks a
everyone.
lot.
Thank you.